Oh, call my monkey D the way I show my Luffy. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Game Skates. Today, and only today, we are here to do something fun, and that is going to be ranking every Sonic sub-series. And of course, if you enjoy the content, as always, please consider subscribing to your boys, supporting the content. We are on the path to 100k, and we're living a good life as we wait for Sonic Racing and more Nintendo stuff. Alright, so the way I have this categorized, I have it as peak, absolute fire, pretty good, UI, and bad. Now, the way I count a series for a Sonic game is it has to have 2 or more entries in it, right? Which is why you're not going to see like every Sonic game here, right? It has to have either, you know, a 2, or it needs to be like directly like in that. Like, for example, we have the Storybook series, which they literally call the Storybook series. So even if it's not numbered sequel, it's pretty much part of that. So as you can see, we have, you know, a bunch of them here, and we're going to go ahead and discuss them and place them. All right, let's start with Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, this in my mind is how I counted sort of the discussion of, you know, Sonic 1, 2, 3, and CD. I guess you can kind of lump in like the pocket version stuff, but I don't necessarily think that. But when I think of, you know, the original Sonic series, right, Sonic the Hedgehog, right, Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, 3, and CD. And this is a really fun one to think about because these are some of the most important games in the franchise, right? They're the things that set the series, you know, ablaze, right? They're very important. They're very distinct. And as a series, I mean, if let's think about consistency bar for bar, right? Sonic 1, overall, pretty good game, right? I guess we would all say, like, I think it's solid. I think it definitely ages the most out of, like, the original run of games. So I wouldn't call it necessarily a peak in that sense, but it's still a really important game, you know what I mean? And so I think in that aspect, you know, that kind of bogs it down a bit. But Sonic 2, I think, is fantastic. You have fantastic music selection. You have the gameplay a bit more refined. You have fantastic level design and bosses. Like, you really get to the later half of the game and you feel it's getting way more cinematic than it used to be. And then you have Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which is like a fucking incredible game. And then you have Sonic CD, which, like, no, depending on who you ask, is like great or not great. Like, so I think if I were to really think about the original run of Sonic the Hedgehog games, I'm thinking absolute fire. I don't think this is the peak that I need the series to be at, but I think like this is a great era, you know, that I really love, and I look fondly back at the sprite work. They're games that I go back to consistently, you know, especially Sonic 3 and Knuckles. That's always a great one to go back to. But yeah, I think Absolute Fire is a good place for the original games. All right, this is the Sonic Adventure series. So this is Sonic Adventure 1 and Sonic Adventure 2. I know some people like to smart-ass it and say technically Heroes count. I'm not counting it. I think Heroes is a very different game in how it's, you know, handled. But I'm going to go Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 for the sake of, you know, keeping this consistent. Where would I think about placing Sonic Adventure? I think for me, see, this is one where, like, do I put my personal feelings or do I put, you know, like the realistic ones? Because, okay, you think of Adventure 1 and 2. I think while they are flawed games, I do think a lot of things about them are still peak, right? Like, I really adore the story in the original Sonic Adventure. I love Station Square as a concept. I love the levels that you're able to go to. I love the variants, you know, that you play through those levels with Amy, Tails, Knuckles, you know. Big, not so much, but like Omega's story is really heart-wrenching, you know. But you've got some like fucking awesome levels. Like, I love the egg carrier. I don't know why I randomly thought of that level, but I love that one. Obviously, the ice cap version that they have in this game. Like, I could go on, obviously, about the types of levels of an adventure. And of course, Adventure series has its own feel when it comes to the gameplay. Like, Sonic is way more controlled, right? Like, you know, you can move them around a lot better, you know, or maneuver it a lot more, right? You have way more control of the character. And of course, with the Sonic Adventure series, like, you had the introduction of new playable characters. You know, we got our characters like you know, we finally got characters like Omega playable. We got Shadow the Hedgehog playable. We got the introduction of Rouge, you know, we've got even Eggman playable. Like, I feel like the Adventure series did so much for the series that for me, I'm thinking we go peak. I think Adventure is still, like, when I think aesthetically, when I think style-wise, when I think story-wise, when I think the world, when I think everything, like, I really adore everything the Adventure series has going for it, you know. And while it's not perfect, I don't think peak means perfect. I think for me, like, Adventure is the bar that we want to get to in terms of a storytelling or style, in terms of even gameplay, having more agency of the characters, and even having different characters with different gameplay styles. It's everything I want. All right, next up, we have the Sonic Advance series. So this is a trilogy of games, right, overall. And honestly, I really love Sonic Advance, right? Obviously, you have some of the best sprite work in the series. I think the best sprite work, barring maybe Sonic Mania. And just those advanced sprites are just so good. You also continue the, what people wanted, which is having more playable Sonic characters, right? Like you have your Amy's and your Tails, and you have, the introduction of Cream and Cheese, right? You can play as Knuckles. You have games in the series like in Sonic Advance 3 where you can do team up mechanics, right? Like story's fairly simple, but the gameplay between those games has always been super fun. You know what I mean? Very memorable, very enjoyable, and it's a very like simple game, right? And while it's not like the craziest thing, it's not like the pinnacle of the series, I think for me, like Advance, I would say, honestly, for me, does it go above the OG games? That's a tough question. If you ask me that, that's where I start to hesitate a bit, But honestly, if you ask me right now, do you want to play Sonic 1, 2, 3 or Sonic Advance 1, 2, 3? I'm going Sonic Advance 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry. Like, I grew up with those games. Like I said, I love the sprite work. I love the more vibrant levels. Like, there's levels in those games where you're, like, jumping over pianos. There's, like, beautiful cities in the background. Like, I'm a huge sucker for really pretty sprites. And those games have those. You have like the cool moments with the supersonic fights at the end of those games. It's really dope how much shit they did in those 3 games. All right, next up here we have the Sonic Storybook series. Now this counts again because, it is 2 games, Secret Rings and the Black Knight, but they consider them part of this series, and I think everybody kind of lumps these 2 together. Anyway, this is tough for me because I think so. Sonic Storybook series in concept, I think is 10 out of 10. It is genuinely like my favorite concept in the series of Sonic going into these alternate story worlds, and he's changing the story himself. He's in these really gorgeous environments. Obviously with Sonic and the Secret Rings, you've got like a very big Arabian theme. You're going to deserts, you're going to skeleton domes, you're going to these, fire industries. Like it's really cool what they do. In Black Knight, obviously, from wielding a sword, slashing through, and some of the best characterization of the character in the series, and some of the coolest movement you can do with upgrades. Like, I think they do a lot of cool shit with the Sonic Storybook series. I do think, however, the gameplay of those games are definitely hampered by the Wii, right? Especially Sonic and the Secret Rings. That game is a wrist breaker for how much you have to tilt back, tilt forward, like shake forward. Like that game, it feels like it wants you dead half the time, which is a little bit frustrating. But Black Knight, I think, refines it. I really don't mind the motion control of Black Knight because I have more control of Sonic. And so for me, I do think the raw energy of those stories and world can really carry it. And for me, I'm going to go pretty good because I really do adore Black Knight. But I'm heavily flawed on Secret Rings, but I do love the story. So I'm going to go pretty good. All right, next up, Sonic Riders series. So for this, we have Sonic Riders, we have Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, and sadly, we have Sonic Free Riders. Now, if this was just Sonic Riders 1 and 2, this shit might go an absolute peak, right? But Sonic Free Riders does bog it down because that's a like flat out bad entry, in that it doesn't even have style. I would even say like it's got some gameplay that's kind of enjoyable. Obviously the aesthetic is always going to be cool in those games no matter what because you're on hoverboards. But yeah, I mean, Sonic Riders, especially if you think 1 and 2, are some of the coolest things to come out of the series, and they're really distinctly different. Like Sonic Riders 1 is a very difficult game with a high difficulty curve, but when you learn it, it's fucking awesome. I think even the character animations are really good. Just doing like being able to pull off some of those curves, like even riding on slipstreams, which I think is super cool. The level design, the areas you go to, it can be a little bit slippery and bumpy, and I think that's an issue with the first game a lot. I think Zero Gravity definitely refines the gameplay a bit, right? Where it makes things a little bit slower, a little bit more controllable for more people to be able to actually play through the game. And you've got obviously a fantastic aesthetic throughout these games and everything. So I'm going to say, I'm going to put it in pretty good. I'm going to go, you know what? I think 1 and 2 carry heavy. I think Free Riders, while it's a shit stain on it, I do think 1 and 2 are genuinely like amazing games that I really love. Not just story-wise, but gameplay-wise and feel-wise. Like, it's just such a different kind of car racer, and I just love it. All right, next up we have the Sonic Racing series. I know it says Team Sonic Racing, but this is the Sonic Racing series. So this would be basically Sonic Racing All-Stars, Sonic Racing All-Stars Transformed, Team Sonic Racing, and what's the other one? Sonic Crossroads that's coming out, but I'm not going to count that because the game's not out yet. But I would say, I think it's pretty fair to say that, like, the Racing series has been pretty good overall, right? While, like, aesthetically, they don't carry the torch of Sonic Riders, I think they are really, like, good kart racers. They're super fun. Like, I actually want to do, you know, I've been doing a revisited series of the Sonic Racing games, and once I finish through Team Sonic Racing, I'll be able to, you know, lock in and do that. But yeah, I think when it comes to Sonic Racing or series overall, I think it's pretty good. I think the aesthetics of it are really nice. I think the simplicity of going into a car racer is good. Again, it loses a bit of its style, but it gains coolness points in getting a Sega crossover, right? Like, obviously, you're getting II, you're getting, you know, Samba de Amigo in there, you're getting characters from Shenmue. Like, they go all around with the roster, and the levels you go to are from different parts of the series. So, and even, like, what I really loved about All-Stars Racing Transformers, they introduced, like, flying and going in the water, and, like, the first All-Stars Racing was, like, just a really solid, well-made car racer. And so I think for me, like, I would say consistency-wise and fun-wise, I would put it in pretty good above the Storybook series because it just has more bangers. The only really dark spot, quote-unquote, would be, like, Team Sonic Racing. And even then, that game is really fun. It just lacks, you know, people playing it online, right? But I thought, like, the gameplay-wise, it was pretty fun. I think they're all really fun. And I think it's pretty safe to say that Racing Crossroads is going to be really great, too. I think if Crossroads comes out and it's fantastic, I would be willing to put it in absolute fire right next to Riders. All right, next up we have Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. I just wanted to count this because, you know, Sega technically made this series, and it is a sub-series that has a shit ton of games in it. I think these are good. You know, these are, I know it's a series that some people are more fond over than others, right? And I think, you know, a lot of it comes down to if you ended up playing with friends a lot, if you care about leaderboard stuff, because overall, right, there's a bunch of versions of these games. They do kind of end up blending together. It's cool that they do stuff like the dream events where, you know, you can go to places. For me, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games would be so much better as a series if they leaned into the mini game aspect of them more, because they have the dream events in those games, and the dream events are always the highlight. The dream events are the thing where, like, you know, you're able to play through a Mario Galaxy level with Sonic characters. You're able to play, you know, through Sonic levels. Like, there's one that is always a really funny one where you go through. I'm trying to remember. Of course, I'm blanking right when I talk. Oh yeah, you do like a Sonic Riders level in Metropolis with Sonic characters. Like, there's a bunch of cool shit like that where, like, you're going to different areas from these character series within those games, and I think that's really, really fucking cool. But I think overall, it's an aight series. I mean, it repeats itself a lot. It's literally dead. It's, you know, sometimes you just have these mini games just kind of go through the same thing over. I think it's aight. All right, we have the Sonic Rush series next. Ooh, Sonic Rush. What do I think of you, my beloved? Because I think Sonic Rush is awesome overall. Now, I do know there are people out there that say Sonic Colors DS is technically Rush 3. I don't know if for the sake of this conversation, I want to count it. As much as I acknowledge, yes, it's basically a Rush game besides in title. I mean, okay, I'm not going to lie to you. I would say regardless, I might put this shit in peak. I think the adaptation of the boost formula in a 2D game is really good. I think the trick system is really dope. I think the levels are fucking sick. I think the music in these games is awesome. Bosses can be a little bit lacking, but story is really great. Let's say this. If it didn't count Colors DS, I'd put it in fire. If it did count Colors DS, I'd put it in peak. But I just want that to be on the record. I'm going to put it in peak, right? But, it, you know, again, if it didn't count Colors DS in it as a trilogy, I would put it in absolute fire. But I just love Sonic Rush and Sonic Rush Adventure so much. I think, again, like I said, I love the sprites. I mean, not the sprites, even like the 3D models. I love the supersonic fights. I love just playing those games. They're just fun to play. They're addicting, man. They use the DS screen so well, and I hope one day they figure out how to port those games, get everything on one screen. I think they'd have to rebuild everything from the ground up, but if they have the level layout, I don't think it'd be too hard. Sonic Boom. So, technically we have 3 games in this series. We have Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric, we have Shattered Crystal, and then we have Fire and Ice. Now, I know there's some people that swear by, you know, some of the 3DS ones are like decent, but the damage this did to the brand, and these are really not Sonic games to me. You know, they're kind of games that have Sonic characters in them. That's always the best way I've been able to describe the Sonic Boom series. Like, Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric feels like those licensed Nickelodeon games that you used to play, but they have Sonic characters in it, right? And then again, the 2D Metroidvania 3DS games, again, they feel like they could have been like games for any character, but they put Sonic in it. And so for me, it's just, it's gonna go in bad. It's just get away from me, please. All right, next up we have Sonic Rivals. Ooh, Sonic Rivals. What do I do with you? Because so these are 2 games. They were released on the PSP, never to be seen again. And I think they're basically like a 2D racing game. Kind of like the whole gimmick is that you're just racing against one other Sonic character in a level. They have pretty mid stories, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I think they're pretty fun. Like, I played 2 of them recently on stream. I think it's a pretty fun game to go through. There's really not much depth to it. Like, you're kind of just running through. I do like that they kind of treat it like an obstacle course. Like, you're running, you can press B at the right time to like get over like a hump. You know what I mean? You can get some power-ups to stop your opponent. It has like a card system, I guess, for unlockables. Like, I think it's the definition of it's not bad, you know, per se. And I like the idea of a Sonic, you know, actual, like, where you're foot on foot racing against an opponent, but it just feels so limited in its scope and its style and everything it does that it's just, it's you know, it's not bad. I had fun playing them, but that's it. Sonic Drift. Okay. Sonic Drift, again, this counts as a series because there's 2 games in Sonic Drift 1 and 2. I don't have much to say about this one either. I think it's also, like, it's not bad. I played them actually recently on Game Gear versions of them. I think they're both available in Sonic Origins. And they're alright. You know, I'd put them bottom of They're not bad. They're pretty fun little kart racers, you know, and I like the idea they have to like really drift beforehand. There's some cool jumps you can do. There's some items you can get. Like, they're very simple. The roster's fun. Like, you'll get Fang in there. You'll get Amy. You'll get Metal Sonic. So pretty good character choice. And yeah, it's there's not really much to say about Sonic Drift. All right, now the reason I have Sonic Shadow here is because I feel like these are 2 different generations games. Even if they're bundled together, they're basically separate games within the same moniker. And even like the Gen's 3DS version, I mean, I don't want to start playing that game too much of like, you know, counting the old versions, because then Sonic Lost World is a series, right? But I do think even not counting the 3DS version, I think like these are 2 generations games that are just bundled together. And I might put that in peak, right? I mean, I think the Gen's philosophy of like 2D and 3D levels blending together, revisiting the series, it's a really unique thing of like, not many series can do this, where they can make a game that's like, let's bring back like all the best levels and put them in one package, repackage the new designs. Like, I think that's a really unique concept to Sonic, right? And while, you know, Sonic Gen story isn't the best, the gameplay is really where it stands, the boost levels and everything, challenge levels, and then even with Shadow Generations, you then have the fixed version of that where the story's fantastic, the levels are fantastic, bosses are really fucking cool. I think it goes in peak for me. I think Generations as a IP is really good, and honestly, like, I could see them make more someday. You know, I would love to see, like, again, one day a Silver Generations. Well, yeah, where even though Silver hasn't gotten to many locations, maybe one day he will, you know, and they'll be able to put a bunch of levels he's been through, you know, or even like an Amy Generations where you got like some, you know, CD levels put into 3D. Like, dude, imagine Stardust Speedway in 3D. That would be fucking awesome. And for me, I just think Generations as a concept is a big enough name now that, like, especially if you play Sonic, you would know right away. Like, if they said like Amy Generations, you would know what kind of game that would be. If they said Knuckles Generations, you know what kind of game that would be. Oh, dude, Knuckles Generations has got to be fire, right? If you went through the series best, like, emerald, what's it called, emerald hunting levels, or even like you were able to go to different ones, or you could break through stuff, kind of like a certain Donkey Kong game is doing. But yeah, no, I think Generations overall goes into the peak category. Is it better than Sonic Rush? Yes, I think I would say that. I'd go as far as to say that. Sonic Dash, it's right? I think that's like it's not bad. It's like a nice mobile game. I guess Sonic Force's Speed Battle is kind of just Sonic Dash again. But yeah, this is overall how I would rank the sub-series. I did consider Unleashed, because Unleashed and Unleashed are two different games, but it is still like one game, and it's still technically the same story, whereas like at least with Sonic Shadow Gens, it's two different stories and two separate campaigns. They're just bundled into one game. But yeah, I think this is like a pretty solid listing of them. Of course, in the comment section below, as always, let me know what you guys think of this ranking, and of course of your opinion. Where would you rank these for yourself? I always love reading what you guys have to say to me. Thank you all for watching. You guys are the best, and of course I will see you all next time. Peace out.